black preachers who are racist in their hearts. They are not called by God, but they've been called by their mama.
The Jesse Lee Peterson Show is the only program in existence which deals straight up with black Americans.
So-called civil rights leaders want them angry, dumbed down, and demoralized.
It's not the leaders that blacks need, but good fathers and mothers.
Welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Peterson. Thank you so much for tuning in. And one thing that we attempt to do here, at least, is to dialogue in a way that we can get an understanding about life. Because unless you get an understanding of life, you're never going to get better in life. So if you have any questions about this show or any other show, feel free to write me or email me. Tell me what you think about it. My guest today is Gene Collins. Gene Collins is the president of the NAACP in Odessa, Texas. And Gene, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for inviting me.
I appreciate it. Gene, I want to know a little bit about you first. You know, what type of man are you? You know, who am I talking to? What type of man are you?
Well, I'm the product of the goals and the aspirations set by my parents.
You were raised by both a father and a mother?
Yes,
okay.
I have a brother and a sister. We come from a very religious family, a very social responsible family. I remember my mother was president of the PTA. I finished college. I went to two colleges, actually, Abilene Christian College, and I finished Baylor University and worked for a while with the criminal justice system. I got into the insurance industry, and I decided to use some of that social responsibility that I learned as a young child and move back home and open my own business. So currently I am an owner of an insurance agency. I'm a full-time minister. I'm a radio minister. I'm also quite an accomplished musician.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. What do you play?
Well, I actually sing.
I see.
I sing with the symphony here, and I also have a group that sings nothing but a cappella music called the James Elkin Singers.
Are you married?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah, and children.
Mm-hmm.
Gee, how did you and why did you become president of the NAACP?
Well, growing up in Odessa, Texas, far west Texas, there were so many instances, very obvious instances of discrimination. There were episodes of hatred. We have, and even back then, we had a very active Ku Klux Klan. They rallied publicly in West Texas. And growing up under that background, I knew that I wanted to do something to help our people, be a bridge between our people and some of the other experiences that I was fortunate enough to have. I went to Baylor, and while I was at Baylor University, I actually met the first person that graduated from Baylor. So we were kind of a revolutionary generation. When we first integrated our schools in Odessa, I was a part of that migration from the old all-black school to the integrated school.
How old are you?
I am 51 years old.
Really?
Yes.
Gene, what is the purpose of the NAACP? What is its purpose?
Well, the NAACP is multi-purpose, has several purposes. We are as diverse as the geography that encompasses the United States. There are some areas where we'll have a Freedom Fund dinner and have 50,000 people to show up. In other areas, there may not be but 5. So the NAACP is a very diverse organization with one central mission, and that is the advancement of African American people. That advancement can be economic advancement, educational advancement, social advancement, these types of things. We feel that we need some type of organization in which we can hook up with and network with so that we can accomplish these goals.
And when you say advance, you mean that the NAACP help black Americans rise above their situation?
Yes, and also understand the situation. The major the major emphasis in solving a problem is understanding the problem.
That's right.
And then providing an adequate solution. In doing that, we have not only helped the African American, but anyone who has felt disenfranchised throughout the years.
How important is character to the NAACP? How important is that an important issue to them?
It's about as important as it is in any other realm of life. The character issue is something that I think needs to be discussed in a holistic way. I mean, we have instances, some of the greatest people in the Old Testament who had character issues. I don't think character is a deterrent. Character is certainly the better way to handle everything. But when we look at people like David, the man who God really loved, we knew that he was a murderer and an adulterer. I think character, when it's placed upon the background of Christianity and our Judeo-Christian ethical system, is something that needs to be constantly worked on, but certainly when there is a flaw, it's forgivable.
So you're saying that character is not like the #1 issue in the NAACP. It's an important issue, but not #1.
I think truth is #1. Truth is the main thing. Sometimes we get bogged down with personalities.
Right.
I don't think personalities is our major issue. I think we need to get above that. Because we have such media attention to everything we do, the media has made character.
I want to talk to you about a couple of the men that are head of the NAACP. And the first one is Mfume, Kweisi Mfume. He's the president, right?
Yes, he is.
Does it bother you that Kweisi Mfume have at least 5 or 6 children out of wedlock?
Does it bother me?
Yes.
No, it doesn't bother me.
Because he's over you, right?
He's head of the NAACP.
Right, so he would be your boss in a sense. Not your boss, but you have to answer to him first.
But
does it bother you that you answer to a man who have 5 children out of wedlock?
No.
No.
It doesn't, and let me tell you why. It doesn't bother me because the same God that forgave David and who helped Samson, who fell by the way of a woman and others, is the same God that we serve now. And the NAACP is certainly bigger than Kweisi Mfume.
Right.
I was a member of the association before I knew of Mfume. Then I learned of him while he was in Washington. And I applaud the fact that even though he had a torrid background, that he was able to lift himself up and become the man that he is now. I think he's an example for those who have fallen.
Is he a good man, you think?
As far as I know.
As far as you know.
Yes.
Would a good man make 5 or 6 children out of wedlock?
I don't think a good man would do it at that time. Can a man change? Can a man be forgiven? Can a man lift himself up out of the portals of sin? I think that's really the sign of a good man. Not necessarily where he was, but where he is now. And the fact that enough of the constituents in the area that he lives voted him into Congress. And Congress thought enough of him to make him chairman of the Black Caucus. And the NAACP, which has very rigid standards and a search team that consists of some of the most wealthy and affluent people in the whole country, chose him to lead this organization, is enough for me.
The NAACP just completed its 94th convention down in Miami, Florida.
That's correct.
Annual convention, 94. Julian, one of the executive directors of the NAACP, he in essence gave a hate speech toward Republicans by calling them Nazis and saying that the Republican Party caters to the lowest common denomination of a person. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree that all Republicans do that.
Do you think?
I agree that there are some people who are extremely conservative that play on the hatred card. I think that happens on both sides. I think in the extreme sense, when you want to deny people their human rights and all, that can be said. But certainly there are a lot of...
Give me an example of the Republican Party denying people their human rights. Can you give me one?
Well, let me say this about the Republican Party and the NAACP. The NAACP is diverse. There are Republicans, there are Democrats in the NAACP. History will tell us that it was the Republican Party that was formed several years before the Civil War for the one purpose of eradicating slavery.
Yes.
You have a lot of black Republicans who still adhere to the fact that Republicans helped to liberate the African American.
So knowing all that, do you agree with the hate speech that Julian gave?
I didn't hear the speech, but I don't agree with any hate speech. I feel that parties serve their purpose, and after the election, we're all Americans and we should be on the same team trying to accomplish goals to advance humanity.
The NAACP appears to be a political pawn for the white, racist, elite Democratic Party, in that they keep 90% of black Americans on that plantation year in, year out. Do you agree with that?
No,
that
I
they
don't.
should do that?
First of all, I don't agree with that statement. I think we have a free political system and everyone has a right to choose.
But you have to agree that the NAACP caters to the Democratic Party.
Okay, may I finish?
Yeah.
The NAACP is a nonpartisan organization. It is nonpartisan. It coincidentally has some of the same goals that are espoused by the Democratic Party, but by all practical purposes, we are non-political.
Can you name one Republican that the NAACP supported in an election?
Now run that back by again.
You said that they're nonpartisan, right? Mm-hmm. Meaning that they support the Democrats or the Republicans. Right. Can you name one person that they supported in the Republican Party?
Well, first of all, they can't openly endorse anyone,
but they
Republican or Democrat. Let me finish.
But they do with Al Gore and Bill Clinton and all those guys.
In the last congressional election, many of the members of the NAACP openly supported a Republican candidate for Congress.
Who was that?
It was actually the fellow that was running here, Mike Conway.
So that was like the local chapter in Odessa. Mm-hmm. Can you name...
No, it was not the chapter. It was some members.
Oh, some members.
The chapter cannot support a candidate.
Right, but some member. Can you name a Republican that the head chapter supported?
You're talking about the national organization?
Yeah, national chapter organization.
The national organization cannot endorse any candidate.
But they do. In last election, they didn't come out and say, I endorse Al Gore, but by seeing them stand with Al Gore and you know, be with him, it said, and I endorse Al Gore. Do you know any Republican that they have done that with?
Not in a while, but certainly if one would come out with the same platform and the issues, I think when you see the NAACP stand, they're standing with issues and not with personality. If someone, in fact, there are some Republicans here locally. Our governor, I went to the governor's ball, was elected, and he knows that I'm a member of the NAACP. He actually spoke at our convention in Abilene last fall. We gave him every opportunity to give his platform, and those things that lined up with what we believe, we support.
Let me ask you another thing that's popped in my mind. In Cuba, Fidel Castro is really destroying blacks who live in Cuba. He has them in prison. He's punishing them if they speak out against the government there. The NAACP opened a chapter in Cuba. They would not denounce Fidel Castro. They embrace him, if anything. Do you agree with that?
Well, there are some things when you really look at history that Cuba has that exceeds the United States. Their standard of health care and other things is open for everyone. in Texas, we are denying children, helpless children, these same benefits that they have there. So before we throw a rock over there and condemn everything he's done, now remember, he's been in power for years, longer than anyone that we've ever had. And we have a standard of living there.
But that's only because people are afraid to get him out of power. They have tried to overthrow the government, and they're punished and killed and put in jail for the rest of their lives. Okay, it's not like the people want him.
We have problems here continually also that need to be addressed. We still have degrees of racism. We have degrees of hatred.
But how can we don't have lynches. A dictator, though.
We have people who are drugged behind trucks. And, you know, it's really interesting.
We don't have a dictator here.
Well, we have a collective dictatorship. We have a group of elitists that actually run government. In fact, if you really look into history, it was this group of elitists that actually chose George Bush. Bush did not have an inkling to run, but they picked him.
Gee, let's go back to Fidel Castro.
Okay.
Are you saying, yes, I agree with the NAACP that they should embrace Fidel Castro?
Let me speak as a minister now. May I do that?
Yeah.
Okay, because I feel that we are all God's children, and that
you think Fidel is God's child?
If he is human, according to the Bible, he was made in God's image, with a soul and with the ability to make decisions whether they're right or wrong.
But the Bible says that only those who repent and turn to him are his children.
Well, God made all of them, and he gives everyone free will, and he gives them that opportunity to repent until the day that they die.
But is there
I think it's our responsibility. I think it's our responsibility to teach and not to make those types of judgments on people and take people for what they are. Evidently, there are some people who agree with Castro, or he would not be in office now. No, I don't espouse the doctrine of Fidel Castro, but I do applaud the fact that we are reaching out, trying to form some dialogue with this country and with this leader that has been there all these years, as we should do with any country.
I have to say this to you. I doubt if you can find one person in Cuba who will honestly tell you that they agree with Castro. I doubt that. Now, they wouldn't admit that there, and take them out of that situation. They would say, you know what, because people don't want to live under a dictator. And I don't know how the NAACP can justify embracing a dictator while at the same time condemning a person like President Bush. You know, President Bush is like, he's not Christ, but he's like a Christ-like person. And Castro is like Barabbas. Remember that? The people wanted between Christ and Barabbas?
Well, I think you're making a judgment that we're not really equipped to make. Because
but you have a dictator. What more do I need to know?
Let me make a point. The United States is responsible for more dictators in this world than any country. We have set up people like Gaddafi. We set up Saddam Hussein. When he was doing things that the United States favored, and we were getting all from them, he was our friend. We helped to put him in power. We helped to put people in power in Colombia. We have put dictators. So when you condemn the NAACP for any association with Cuba, the NAACP did not put Castro in power. But the United States has put dictators in power that have been very, very harmful to the people that live there.
Because of time, let
me finish.
All right.
We have done it for economic reasons and to advance our economic agenda. The NAACP is a human rights organization. Anybody who is human has certain inalienable rights, whether they live in Cuba or the United States.
Castro will not give the people those rights.
Well,
he determines what they should have and how they should have it and when they should have it. They don't have the right.
The presence of the NAACP being there does not change that agenda whatsoever. We have missionaries in countries where there are dictators, where they're trying to convert people to certain
you know
types of things.
You know what you're doing. You are justifying one wrongdoing by giving me another example of another bad thing.
Well, so, let me ask you something. What?
Am I right about that?
No.
Every time I ask you about Castro, what you do, you tell me about another bad person. Instead of saying, well, you know, yes, Castro is wrong, or yes, we love him. You know, you're justifying it rather than...
No, I'm not. I don't think you're listening. The Bible says, go into all the world, preach the gospel to every creature.
Right.
Okay. If the NAACP considers the human rights or the humanity of people in Cuba, in Africa, in Colombia important, I think it's important for them to have a presence, whether they agree with Caesar. Okay. Paul went to places that were under the Roman Empire's control.
I'm amazed
he did not agree.
I gotta tell you,
he did not agree. He did not agree with what they did, but he did have a message of hope to send to them. And so, you can send a message of hope, and you can have a
what type of hope
an agenda.
What type of hope is the NAACP sending to Castro?
They're not sending it to Castro.
Who are they sending it to?
They're sending it to the people. It's a human rights organization.
Let me ask you about affirmative action.
Okay.
The U.S. Supreme Court made a decision that universities can now accept blacks in based on color. You know, if you're black. Do you agree with that decision?
Well, that's not really the decision. The decision was that because of the diversity that they want to maintain in the university, that it was acceptable to look at color to create the type of diversity that society has.
Do you agree with that?
Well, please let me finish. I don't particularly agree with that, but I do agree with affirmative action. Affirmative action was instituted by President John F. Kennedy in 1962 through an executive order. And the order basically stated that you cannot expect a people who have been disadvantaged for 400 years to be free, put them on a playing field and say that all things are equal. That we need to take affirmative action to make sure that they have what they need to catch up in the race. It was later echoed by our own Texas president, Lyndon Johnson, that said, you cannot expect of people who've been hobbled, and this is the word that he used, hobbled for 400 years by slavery and all, to get on the playing field to move.
Let me ask you though, Gene, because of time, let me ask you.
But can I finish my?
Yeah. We have about 4 minutes left.
Okay. You know, in the Judeo-Christian tradition, we have always had reparations, restitutions. I mean, it's in the Bible that we study. A lot of times the damages are treble. That's why we have treble damages in our legal system. But it seems that the African American and the things that were talked about by our own President George Bush a few weeks ago while he stood at the area where the slave
trading. Make a long story short for me, Gene, because of time.
Okay. But there is no question that there have been some criminal activities against the African American, from slavery, from Jim Crow,
let me ask you this,
from the Civil Rights era.
You're a Christian
those
man,
things
right?
need to be addressed.
You're
Yes.
a Christian man.
Yes, I am.
Is it right to allow a person to enter into a university or a job based on their color and discriminate against a person who have earned their way? Is that right?
Okay. You're not listening to me. You're not. I'm trying to set the preface for affirmative action.
Yeah, I know why it came about, and
Okay.
I think most people understand that.
No, they don't, because now affirmative action is a catch-all for anyone who is not Anglo and white.
One thing you write about,
and let me finish. The affirmative action originally was an effort to compensate or to help bring about, first of all, restitution for people who built the country freely without getting any compensation.
Right. Let me
and
ask
for
you,
all the atrocities of slavery and everything that happened in Jim Crow, and the fact that, let me say something about the institution. We had the government saying that black people could not read, and it was against the law, the laws of the land.
That's so long ago.
No, you have to look at that when you talk about the reason for affirmative action, because we're the only people who have not been given the opportunity to do that.
Let me say this to you, because of time. I'm sorry to rush you. The only people who really benefited from affirmative action, for the most part, are liberal white women, even though in the past it was set up to bring blacks up. I go back to my question, as a Christian man of God, do you believe that it's right to discriminate against others and allow others to come in solely because of their color.
Okay, now
Is that
that's
right?
not. First of all, that is not what affirmative action
That's
is.
what the court said, Gene, that
well,
blacks are considered because of their color first.
Well, I think
If you had a qualified white,
are you going to let me? Are you going to let me finish?
Let me say this to you. Yeah,
okay.
if you had a qualified white and a not so qualified black, you have to take that black person because you got to consider their color first.
Okay.
Is that right?
First of all, when you say is it right, we need to look at who sets the qualifications, what the qualifications are. Was one candidate limited because of any social things in their upbringing or their past? I think when you talk about justice, when you talk about equality, you have to look further than passing a test that was designed by the elite class, given to them.
Jim. Gene,
Well,
you still didn't answer my question. Should they be considered because they're black?
well, you have to.
Is that right?
Yes, it's right if that black has been discriminated against. Yes, it's right.
Amazing.
I think the Bible will confirm that, because those who have been wronged and harmed are due restitution. They are due reparation, sometimes threefold, sometimes tenfold.
Why?
It depends on the severity of the offense against that person.
We are out of time, but when we come back next week, Gene's going to hang out for one more night here. He's going to have on the same clothes because he's going to sleep in his clothes. But I want you to come back, and I want to ask, why aren't you embarrassed by affirmative action as a black man?
Okay.
Because what affirmative action is saying to you, that you can't make it because you are black, you're too dumb, here's something for you. We're out of time.
That's not what it says to me.
We're going to pick up next week on this. Thank you. Have a good night. My name is Jesse Lee Peterson. I am founder and president of a nonprofit organization called BOND, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And our purpose is to rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. There's a perfect order to life. That order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. We deal with all people because the things that we're talking about are spiritual things, which applies to all of mankind. And in the black community, we focus, our primary focus is on the man. I have a book out called From Rage to Responsibility, an excellent book for all people, From Rage to Responsibility. We have a newsletter that we put out every other month. You can contact us at 1-800-411-2663, 1-800-411-BOND. Our web is www.bondinfo.org, BONDINFO.org. Welcome to the show. My name is Jesse Peterson, and my guest today is Gene Collins. We're doing a part 2 here on affirmative action. On the NAACP. Gene is the president of the NAACP in Odessa, Texas, and so we're talking about some of the issues that the NAACP deals with, and I'm trying to get a better understanding of what is it that the NAACP stands for today. So, Gene, thank you for staying over.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Let's wind up on affirmative action because there are so many other things. I say that affirmative action is a quota bill. I say that affirmative action brings more shame to the black community, and especially the black man, in that it says to black people, you can't make it, you're too dumb, you're something wrong with you, so we're going to give you yet another government or program because you're just not going to work hard to get into these universities or into these jobs. Am I wrong about that?
I think you're very wrong. I think the affirmative action programs realizes that life experiences are quite different. If everyone was born a child of privilege, had the same advantages of education, had the same social reinforcements that told them, even in their community, that you're going to amount to something, was fair about the history of the people, and gave them that edge that others have, I think that's what affirmative action tries to address. It does not depend totally upon a testing system, but actually where you started from and where you ended up. It shows the ability and the aptitude of a person who has been disadvantaged by a lot of social injustice.
Do you think that all white people come from a place of privilege?
No.
And so I don't understand when you say affirmative action realizes that most people are not coming from a place of privilege. Black people, what do you mean by that?
Black people were slaves in this country. Even after slavery, they were subjected to Jim Crow laws. They were forbidden by law to read. It was against the law. The laws worked against them. There were laws that totally told them they couldn't do what other people did. They couldn't go where other people went. This never happened to white America. So when I see a young white lady saying, well, look, you're discriminating against me, the first thing I want to ask myself, when were you enslaved? When did you go through the period of time where you could not access public facilities and these things? And you have to look at these things realistically when you look at affirmative action. We've had people who have risen above even during these times. We have people like George Washington Carver and other people who even in the height of Jim Crow were still able to do things.
And that's
so
my
it
question to you.
It doesn't speak to our aptitude.
My question to you, Gene, would be, and you're right that those things did happen in the past, and yet black Americans were able to rise above the situation. There were black colleges coming up everywhere. Black people owned their own businesses. The family was close-knitted. During the time when laws were against black Americans, now the average black can do and go and live and do whatever they want. Why don't they do that rather than wimping, wine, and bag?
Well, you know, there's a theory, a Judeo-Christian theory about retribution and indemnification. The black man is still not whole in this society.
And why not?
Because we have not been given the opportunity, we have not been given the reparations, we have not been given the things we've given other cultures like the Jews, like the Japanese. We're already rebuilding in Iraq after the bombing, but there has been no effort really to try and indemnify and make the black man whole. We're still living subservient to white culture.
Amazing.
And until that happens, we can't say that we're on an equal playing field.
May I disagree?
Sure.
Everything that black Americans have asked for, they have received it. They asked for, about 40 years ago, they asked for welfare. And the government said, all right, we're going to let you have welfare, but you got to take the father out of the homes. Remember that? And so
well, I disagree with you on that. We did not ask for welfare. That program was not a part of it.
No, it was encouraged by the civil rights movement at the time.
No, we have a civil rights bill, and welfare is not in there. And let me say this,
But
there are
twice
as many white people on
finish
welfare
I
than
heard
black
that
people.
before too, but let me finish this. Blacks asked for welfare. They gave them welfare. They asked to integrate the schools. They did that. They asked to integrate the community, the neighborhoods. They did that. They even asked for the white woman. Remember, it was a big deal that the black man had to have a white woman because, or whatever? They even gave up the white woman. When will blacks realize or accept that there's no more to give, but it's time now to take control of your own life? At what point?
Okay. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I don't think you can still be in a position where you want indemnification, and that means that you are not taking responsibility for your life. I think there are a lot of very responsible African Americans who have not only taken responsibility for their own life, but have answered the call to social responsibility. They've taken leadership positions. I think you mentioned some things that I haven't, that are unusual. The black man wanting the white woman. Well,
you remember it was a big deal. We all had to have a white woman because the white man had taken our woman as slaves, so it's like, we got to get a white woman.
Well, I never had those.
Against the law.
I never had those thoughts as a people that's what black men really want.
Yeah,
any more than all white men wanting black women. I think I think the sexual attractions there are something that is biological in nature and not something that we wanted to fashion or structure society out of.
But at one time, Gene, it was a big deal in the black community. But my question to you, at what point, when will blacks know, because now they want affirmative, they want reparations. At what point will enough be enough, and they're going to say, all right, you don't have to give us anything else. We're going to stand up on our own. At what point?
I think when we can educate our children in the proper manner, when we can have a piece of this economy that we help to build freely, when we can go downtown and have the respect not only from law enforcement and other people, when we can go to a courtroom and expect to have justice, when we can have these things, I think we are well on our way to say that enough is enough.
How do you expect, the NAACP expect, to get that type of respect when most black people don't respect themselves and other black people?
And that's a big problem that we have in the community, and I'm glad you brought that up. One of the problems that we have, and we did not anticipate, especially during integration, is that we would lose the ability to educate our people like we need to educate our folks. We have embraced a module, an education module, that basically tells the black person that you are inferior, that what you did was not important in American history, that your sacrifices and your inventions were not important.
Who are doing that? Who was telling blacks?
The white
Who are telling blacks those things?
The white education module tells them that.
And what do you
as
mean
a
by
result,
that? Can you point out a place where this is happening?
Well, it's happening all over the world.
Name one place.
That's why we have 1 month set aside for Black History Month.
Name one place where this is happening.
Well, it's happening in Midland. It's happening
in
Odessa.
Where in Midland?
In the school systems.
So in the public schools system of Midland,
public school system has a module.
Let me just get it straight, though.
Okay.
You're telling me that in Midland and Odessa, Texas, you did say Odessa too, that the public school system, I guess headed up by whites, are telling blacks that they can't make it.
They're not telling them that, but in the module itself, there are no reinforcements. There are not components within the module itself that reinforces black pride, black existence, black worthiness, and as a result, when we go through the module, the end product is an African American who will more than likely accept the counterculture that is built up. We have a counterculture in the black community now. It's not a subculture. It's a rebellious counterculture. It calls good things bad and bad things good.
Give me an example of what you mean. I don't understand that.
Well, there was a time in the all-black schools when we had a mission statement to make socially responsible individuals.
Right.
Social responsibility has been tossed out and removed, and now it's math, it's science, it's these other things that are more important, and that's what the module is set up to produce. On the other end of the spectrum, what comes out of that are students who have no social responsibility, and a lot of them are African Americans, and they go into this counterculture. In this culture, even though they have been tossed out, they still have the abilities and the genius that they had going in. But they are using them now in a very derogatory manner.
Are you speaking of the white culture when you say counter culture?
No, I'm talking about the black. We have a black counterculture.
Oh, a black counterculture.
Yes, that we have to address, and that is the natural product of this education module that we have.
I don't understand that. Okay. I just don't.
A module is a group of components that go in to make a system. So we have an educational system that has component 1, you will do good in math. Component 2, you will do good in English. These components. What's left out is a component saying social responsibility. That a component that says God is supreme. A component that when you remove these components, when the finished product comes out as a graduated child, you have a person that's void of social responsibility. If he has not been taught about his heritage and his importance, then he begins to feel little. So when you put
But
all
Gene,
these into the
you're right about that, but-
counterculture, they are expressing themselves in very, very cruel, bad, derogatory ways.
But Gene, the NAACP support the idea of not having God and dealing with social issues.
I beg to differ
Well,
with
let me
you.
ask
The
you this
NAACP, in fact, the black church is really the bedrock for the NAACP. And whoever told you that the NAACP does not support God is dead wrong.
Let me say this to you, and then I'll give you an example of that. Most of the black churches today, and we don't have time to get into them, but most of the black churches today are not worth a penny. Most of them are headed by weak men who only purpose in life is to gain power and wealth. You know, they don't deal with moral issues at all. But the NAACP supports abortion. They support homosexuality.
No, we don't.
They support gang violence.
Oh no.
Okay,
I don't know where we're getting this information.
Okay, let's say they don't support it.
Okay.
If they don't support it, why don't we hear an outcry from the NAACP about these issues in the black community? Why are they protesting and saying to the public school system, you have to take out homosexuality and put back God, and you have to take out our girls being able to have abortion and not tell the parents, and put the parents and make the parents become responsible? Why don't we hear a loud outcry about those things?
We do.
No,
it
we
may
don't.
not be as loud.
NAACP.
It may not be as loud as you want to hear it, but
we
still.
don't hear loud one at all.
But let me say this. Still, whether you have a homosexual person or a straight person, they do have civil rights. Now, we certainly are going to try and convert anyone who is going against God's will.
So you're telling me today that the NAACP is against homosexuality?
Yes.
So why don't we have Bill Clinton, for example, tried to get homosexuals open and out in the military. The NAACP supported that.
That doesn't mean we support homosexuality.
But what's the difference?
There's a big difference. I cannot support something and be against it, but I'm going to respect your right to have certain inalienable rights.
But they have the same. The homosexuals are, as a person or as a people, are under the same protected law as all of us. We all have the same law. But when you step outside and say, I want you to give me special rights because I'm a homosexual, that's where the problem comes in. And the NAACP supports that.
Oh no, the NAACP does not support special rights for homosexuals.
Where's the evidence that I've never heard them speak out against that?
Well, show me some evidence where we have endorsed it.
I just gave you one.
No, you've made a statement, but there is no evidence. And I'm telling you, as a member in good standing and serving on the state board, that's not correct.
In Los Angeles, I'll give you another one. In Los Angeles Unified School District, the public school system, they've had a program there called Project 10 for the last 12 years or so. It's a homosexual program, and it's in the inner cities high school. I'm not sure about the suburb area, and where blacks and Mexicans are going. And the NAACP is aware of that, and they have not said one word against it. And now our boys and girls have been taught that homosexuality is normal, and that it's okay to date a boy, and a girl and a girl, or a boy and a boy and a girl and a boy, and all kind of stuff.
And you think that's the NAACP's fault?
I think that it's their responsibility to denounce it.
Well, I'm sure. How do you know?
Don't you think?
How do you know members have not denounced it?
I've not heard a word. Have they denounced that?
I don't know. I don't even know about the program.
As a president of
it must not be that big.
No, yeah, it's popular. They keep this kind of stuff hush hush. As the president of the Odessa chapter, would you denounce that today if it was happening in this school here?
It depends.
Would you denounce it?
As the NAACP, we're not government. We are not.
I know, but would you denounce the idea of teaching that to black boys and girls?
Please let me finish. We're going to teach that anyway. We teach that that's wrong anyway. We espouse the Bible, the NAACP.
Where?
Here in Odessa, here in Midland. We do that. However, we also have AIDS awareness programs, and we deal with a lot of homosexuals. We do.
Do you give them condoms or tell them to overcome it?
We tell them to overcome it.
You don't pass out condoms to them.
No.
Let me ask you this, Gene. 70%, 70% of black babies are born out of wedlock. Why don't I hear an outcry about that within the black community from the NAACP?
We do.
Where? You tell them we do. No one. Where are these outcry? I don't hear about them at all.
Oh, we do.
How? Give me an example.
We do. I don't think there's a convention that I've been to where we haven't talked about that. Those same people that you were talking about.
What do you say about it? What do they say about it at your convention? Because we're not hearing about this.
Have you been to a convention?
That's why we hear about everything else that come out of that convention.
No, you hear about what the media likes to fantasize.
That's why I'm asking you, what is being said and done about 70%? Oh, let me ask you this, because of time. You know, the NAACP drives around the country looking for things to make blacks angry. The Confederate flag, for example, they looked around the country, you know, there was nothing to get blacks angry, so they said, you know what, here's this flag. It's a racist flag. Black people should be mad. And so everybody come out and demonstrate, you know, have these rallies. Why don't they do that about these social issues, ills of the black community, like homosexuality, AIDS in the black community, 70% of out-of-wedlock birth, black babies.
Well, what I'm telling you is that
why don't they have big rallies in the black communities telling black folks, you got to stop doing this?
We may not have the same type of rallies, but we have a lot of methods of direct action. Sometimes it's going into a center where these people are gathered. Sometimes it's going to a boys and girls clubs. Because we don't have a big rally, don't condemn us for that.
But why?
But I can tell you that we do take direct action when it comes to these issues.
But whenever it's a black and a white issue or white and black issue, they come out in numbers and protest, right? But when it's black on black crime and out-of-wedlock birth and all this stuff going on within the communities across the country, there's no
Let me ask you something.
Why is that?
You have a family. Do you always expose all of the dirty laundry in your family to the public, or do you keep that within the confines of your house?
Oh, so they're not doing it.
Let me say something.
That's why they're not doing it?
As opposed to something happening to you personally, and the community, it becomes a community-wide thing, and you share with the whole community.
So that's why we don't see loud protests, because they don't want to expose it to the public?
No, not necessarily, because we're dealing with it. Some things are done to expose. We can't stop white people from flying flags. We can expose them. We can go to young people and talk with them one-on-one. We can get the message across to them. That is even more effective than having a rally exposed. It seems like all you wanted to do is promote some type of friction and hate and confusion.
No.
But there are a lot of ways for conflict resolution other than having a big demonstration showing how angry that somebody can get.
Well, one thing I want to clear up is that I don't want to bring confusion. I'm trying to bring peace in the
So why are you asking for a big rally?
Because if the NAACP were to go on TV and say, look, black people, you need to stop having these babies out of wedlock. You need to get married. And by example, guide your wives and children in the right way to go. The black boys and girls need to stop killing each other and everybody else's children. You need to get a job and stop whimpering, whining, and begging. It will have a greater impact on the country at large, rather than secretly going, if they're doing that, going to one person at a time trying to do it.
Just if you feel that way, you may be right. And I'll tell you what I will do. I will talk with our people in Baltimore and see if we can do that and see what they feel about it. Because
I would be happy.
If you really feel that'll work, the problem is so big that we'll do whatever we can to do that.
Yeah, do it the same.
And I will certainly suggest that we do that.
Tell them I said,
on TV, we'll do that.
Tell them I said the same way they go after white folks, go after black folks like that, and I bet you a change will come.
Okay.
All right. One last question, then we'll wind down.
Okay.
I have often said that black Americans are suffering not due to racism, but to lack of moral character. And that is that most blacks, not all, but most blacks are immoral. And you know, we have said it by 70% of black babies born out of wedlock, 90% of black people support the Democratic Party, a party, and not all Democrats are immoral, but the party platform is that of immorality. Abortion, homosexuality, you can cheat on your wife. Remember Bill Clinton, Jesse Jackson, remember that, right?
That's not in any platform.
Right, it was a Bill Clinton platform, he got away with it.
No, it was, I don't.
You can cheat on your wife, you know, you can have abortion. 15 million black babies have been murdered inside the black woman's womb. So I say, and then there's an anger between the black man and the black woman that I think is going to take Jesus Christ to come back and restore. So I say blacks are suffering because it wasn't like that before the civil rights movement started. Blacks had a sense of respect for one another. And no way you curse out an old elderly person and not, you know, get away with it. So I say blacks are suffering due to the lack of moral character rather than racism. Am I wrong?
I think to try to capsulize that is an error, because I think every society has some immorality in it. Don't limit it to the blacks. I think during the slavery period there was nothing more immoral than slavery. Not only did the slave, please let me finish.
I know we need to deal with now though. We understand slavery was bad. Well, slavery been over.
Even
150
what I'm
years
saying
ago.
that even at that backdrop, this country continued to flourish and to grow. Even though we had that mistreatment, all that immorality, and some of that still exists in other races.
But
I think the problem,
why weren't blacks like that? But before the civil rights movement, slavery had ended a while back. But yet black were overall decent people. But then the civil rights movement started and they fell away from decency and became immoral. Why, if slavery is responsible for it, why do we see more of that then than we do now?
Okay. One thing
you got a good question?
A very good question.
All
Very
right.
tough question. One of the things has to do with media, with changes in society. We have nudity. We have all types of provocative things that constantly go into the homes that were censored before. We just have a Western civilization, not just black people, that has put God in the background. We could not even wait for God's guidance before we made responses to war and anything else. We prayed, but we didn't look for his guidance. We didn't have a panel of religious people going into the Bible saying, what should we do? We don't rely on God like that. We've taken him out of the schools. We've taken the Bible out. It's not a problem just with African Americans. I think
but it's
Western
overwhelming in the black community. I'm a black man, and I'm trying to deal with black people because most people are afraid to tell them the truth. And for the number of blacks in America, it is overwhelming.
Well, I've never taken a poll of how many immoral black people versus how many immoral white or Hispanic or Chinese or Iranians or
But based on the
what?
70% of black babies are born, do you believe that having babies out of wedlock is an immoral act?
Yes.
Okay, so
no, I believe the act, not the having of the baby. I think the act of fornication is immoral.
So, and as a result, you know, you got the whole deal. So you disagree with me that it's a lack of character rather than racism that's causing blacks to suffer today?
No, I'm not saying there's a lack of character, that the lack of character is a very important reason.
Yes.
My take on it is because we have taken God out in the module itself.
1 minute left, G. 1 minute left. I am about rebuilding the family, about rebuilding the man. I believe that if men turn back to God, allow God to guide them, get married, guide their wives and children in the right way to go, by good example, that black America would change just like that. Things would get better. Am I wrong about that?
I agree with that.
So can
but
you,
I would like to add
encourage
something
the
to that.
NAACP to do that?
Yes.
To return the men back to God so that things can change? 30 seconds.
Yeah, all men have not left God. Some people in the NAACP feel they're doing God's work. It's an extension of the church. But I think the problem is bigger. I think the NAACP needs to look at several issues, including education.
Is there a phone number for you, G?
333-1161.
333-1161. What's the area code?
915-432.
915 or 432? Have a good day. Thank you. name is Jesse Lee Peterson. I am founder and president of a nonprofit organization called BOND, the Brotherhood Organization of a New Destiny. And our purpose is to rebuild the family by rebuilding the man. There's a perfect order to life. That order is God in Christ, Christ in man, man over woman, and woman over children. We deal with all people because the things that we're talking about are spiritual things, which applies to all of mankind. And in the black community, we focus, our primary focus is on the man. I have a book out called From Rage to Responsibility, an excellent book for all people, From Rage to Responsibility. We have a newsletter that we put out every other month. You can contact us at 1-800-411-2663, 1-800-411-BOND. Our web is www.bondinfo.org, bondinfo.org.
For an audio or video copy of this program, please call or write the address on the screen. Please include the program number when ordering.